Hey everyone, it's Aesah, and welcome to my video on Ixtal Reroll in set 16. There's a few things to talk about with this comp. First of all, I do want to mention you can use meta TFT PvE comps. If you go all the way to the top here, just change this. It's probably on ranked by default. You can change it to PvE. And now there's quite a lot of games, 8 million games. Um, and the patch has been relatively stable for a while, so you can actually see which comps are performing pretty well. Ixtal is I think this comp in the right hands is easily S tier. However, it is pretty tricky to play. Each troll has a lot of nuances that are not in other comps that have existed ever in TFT, with a choosing which quest you want to go on. So the data doesn't quite reflect it, but despite how tricky it is to play, it's still averaging very, very well and still in A tier. So yeah, once again, playing this comp correctly after you watch this video, hopefully, this comp is very easily S tier. It's probably the second best comp besides Seraphine Singed, which I have a video out on. So this is a reroll comp. You will spend most of your time on level 6. However, you do want to unlock Bard, who is a very important condition. Roll 4 times before stage 2 carousel. So generally the best way to do this is do not level on 2-1 or 2-2. On 2-3, you will naturally hit level 4, and then you want to use your rolls on this stage. The reason is because at level 4, you will have a chance of finding Milio, and then getting Ixtal in as early as 2-3 gives you a huge advantage for the rest of the game. It's not necessary to find Milio this early. If you don't find Milio, don't worry about it. You will roll again on level 6 on 3-2. And then by then, I think it's pretty important to find at least one copy of Milio to start stacking your Ixtal quests up. Uh, One really important aspect of this comp is getting to 500. I always forget the name of what they're called. Basically, 500. Where's Brock? 500 Ixtal sunshards, I guess. So you really want to get Ixtal in as early as possible. 3-2, ideally as early as possible, but 3-2 is good as well. So again, make sure you unlock Bard. Bard has a unique trait, Caretaker, that gives you a random unit after you win. It'll give you rerolls if you lose. So either way, Bard will just accelerate your econ. The unit you'll get if you win is lightly tailored, so it'll help you hit your other 3 stars. Again, you'll be spending most of your time on level 6, so you won't have Nidalee and Skarner, who both require. Skarner requires level 7. Nidalee requires 2-2-star Neeko, so once you hit, you don't need to go for Kiana. You can 2-star her, of course, she's cheap. But once you find Nidalee, you can just replace Kiana. This will be mostly the board that you will play on level 6. Neeko wants to be your main tank, compared to Vi. First of all, Vi is a fighter, so she doesn't actually gain mana from taking damage. But other than that, Vi for 30 mana, shields for about 175. Neeko for twice the amount of mana, shields for about 4 times as much. So Neeko is clearly your best tank here. Nidalee does have a unique effect where she is untargetable until your Neeko dies. So you can position her on the edges. Don't worry, your Nidalee is safe. And by being on the edges, it gives her a better chance to wrap. Nidalee, I've also noticed, I don't know if this will be fixed by release, but Nidalee can definitely mess up your opponent's pathing. I feel like the way this unit is coded is not that clean, and it can cause your opponent's carry to just walk right into the front line. So, I mean, I'm hoping that will be fixed, but in the meantime, playing Nidalee has a little bit of value there as well. So you'll always be playing your 3 Ixtal units. Again, before you have Nidalee, you'll have Kiana. You'll always be playing Neeko, Kiana, Milio, and Bard. Vi and Orianna are a really good pair to play here. They're also in the kind of the same cost bucket because you'll be rolling on level 6. So you can look for the 3 stars of these units as well. They'll also give you Invoker and Piltover, which are just 2 really good traits, and Defender. There's just 3 good traits. Note to unlock Orianna, you will have to play 3 Piltover units. So the easiest way to do this is to just not play Bard for one round. Oftentimes this will be 3-2. If you're lucky enough to find Loris and Caitlyn before then, you can do it on neutrals, so you won't lose out on a Bard round for combat purposes. Because you have a lot of removers, the round you're not playing Bard, you could just itemize the Milio instead. But yeah, Oriana's unlock requires 3 Piltover units. Sometimes you'll have Seraphine, but it's almost always going to be the 3 here. For who to itemize, you might think that Milio as a 3 cost is better, but Bard is actually the strongest, assuming you have everything 3-starred. Even though he's a 2 cost, for some reason he's just the strongest. I guess it's because he doesn't really have a trait besides an econ trait, and there is a cost to get him, so he's just a really strong unit. Item wise, you'll just want 1 mana and 2 damage, or 2 mana and 2 damage. So Trojan, AP items, Nashers with crit specifically, or blue buff, like any of these are going to be fine. You're always going to want some sort of anti-heal and anti-MR somewhere in the comp. Anti-MR being Void Staff or Spark. This entire comp is basically magic damage for most of the game, so it's very important to have Void Staff or Spark. Yeah, you want to reroll at least until Bard 3 and Neeko 3. Usually you'll want to go for everything. Bard ability does scale with the amount of 3 stars on your board, and oftentimes you'll just be kind of close to other things once you hit both of these. That'll still be worth it to go for them. However, if you're pretty far off, you absolutely don't need everything. If you're pretty far off from everything else, you absolutely can just push levels. As long as you have Neeko and Bard, these units are very important. When originally linked from the comp guide, it showed 5 Ixtal. So you can play this. The 5 Ixtal trait is not super important though. I guess I'll talk about unlocking Skarner real fast. Skarner, you have to be level 7 with a stone plate on a non-tank unit. So you could do this on neutrals. Just put stone plate on someone else. I'm pretty sure it's not a tank. But yeah. Nidalee to unlock, you need 2 2-star Neeko, so you'll get Nidalee to replace Kiana at some point during your quest to Neeko 3. Eventually, once you have Brock, you'll just replace your weakest Ixtal unit with Brock. Brock is really strong, even at 1 star. He is basically as strong as a 2-star copy of almost any other unit. You always want to be playing Brock. So anyway, back to 5 Ixtal. The only thing it gives you is 2 player health at each combat. This is not bad per se, but it's not super useful. It's 10 HP over the course of an entire stage. If you have the option to instead just play a stronger board, and that makes a difference in even one fight, then that's going to be more than a 10 HP swing. That being said, these units are absolutely not bad, so you can just play them. However, if you have a better alternative, for example, we had the Nidalee build that I was showing earlier. I don't remember exactly what it was, something like this. And then you find, for example, a 2-star Fiddlesticks. I would just replace the Nidalee immediately. We're not getting that 2 HP per player combat or 10 HP per stage. But, you know, if you lose a fight in stage 5, it's probably going to be like 13 HP. So if you are able to play a stronger board and win just one more fight because of that, then it's going to be better. Skarner is, of course, a completely fine unit, but if you do hit something better, the absolute best units that I've seen played here that can be a little tricky to get can be THex or Sylas if you hit them 2-starred. THex requires 9 total Piltover levels, so you can unlock this on neutrals, especially if you have Oriana 3 and Vi 3. Then you just need, 1 Caitlyn, 1 Loris, and 1 Seraphine. So you could play THex. Sylas has a much trickier unlock. You have to sell 2-star Jarvan, Garen, Lux. However, these are some units you can consider playing. I wouldn't worry about them too much if the unlocks are too challenging. Otherwise, you could just use, honestly, just generally any upgraded legendaries are going to be really strong. Even without their traits, like if you have a Senna 2, it's going to be really good. If you have a Shyvana, you can replace Skarn with that. Even like Taric, who is a 4 cost, is going to be quite good as well. Shyvana, is Juggernaut. So oftentimes, if you do play Shyvana, Swain's a really nice addition. That'll give you Arcanist and Juggernaut, Arcanist with Neeko. So you could play like something like these two units instead of the 5 Ixtal, just because 5 Ixtal doesn't really do anything, but again, the units are not bad. Brock is a fighter. Again, you'll always want to play Brock once you unlock him. You need to collect 500 over the course of the game. Edge Knight is going to be really good. Basically, if Brock gets his cast off, he's a 60 mana unit. If Brock gets his cast off, that's the most important thing. He's going to do a ton of damage to everyone. Knocks up your opponent's entire board for 1.5 seconds, so very, very strong. Infinity Edge is good, Giant Slayer is good. Some kind of like tanky bruiser items are going to be good as well, like Sterix is very good. Bloodthirster is going to be okay. It's definitely fine as well. But mainly, you just want to make sure your Brock casts. So if you have the option between like Bloodthirster or Edge Knight is definitely more reliable between the two. So let's talk about Ixtal's unique mechanic, which I haven't talked about yet. But if you made it this far, you probably already know what it is. Basically, Ixtal is the cash out trait of this set. Every single round, you will get a choice of 3 quests that you can choose to get sunshards. And then you can, whenever you complete a quest, you can choose to cash out. So once you collect 500, you'll get Brock, but you don't have to get it all at once. Something that's very common when playing this line is you might get maybe like 300 or so shards, and then you're getting low on HP, and then you take the cash out, you get perhaps an artifact, for example, and then you use that to start winning rounds and get the next 200 shards. Then you get Brock, and then you use Brock to start winning rounds. In the meantime, you're still accumulating more and more cash outs throughout the game. Generally, the cash outs scale pretty exponentially. Just for example, compared to cashing 250 out twice in a row, which would be 500 total, you would get 2 full item anvils and 12 gold. If you just do it all at once, and you cash out 500, you get 3 full item anvils. So just comparing like 250 to 500, you're getting like 50% more by waiting and cashing out all at once. And we can see that if we're able to get to some of these higher tiers, they're much stronger. Even going from 500 to 625, we can see now we're getting maybe like 2 items and 3 masterworks compared to this, which is just way stronger. Radiant item, 2 Tactician's Crown. I think you'll get the picture, but basically each successive high cash out tier is much better than the one before. It's just because when you're actually playing the game, by the time you start getting around to these levels, you should be pretty low on HP, and at that point you should be pretty pressured to cash out. When you do take an Ixtal quest, it's very, very important that you are able to cash it out. The absolute worst thing that can ever happen to you while playing this comp is that you die before taking your first cash out. Sometimes there might be a risk that's worth it, but generally you should almost never let that happen to you. But yeah, you want to delay the cash out as long as possible. So whenever you're offered something and you think you can still make it reliably, then you should continue pushing to get the higher tier cash outs instead of getting like 2 low tiers in a row. Anything else to talk about here? Real quickly, I want to talk about Piltover modules. EMP is really good, Blast Shield is really good. Nets, and then one of them that just does like flat damage, plus 10% of their max HP as true damage on their board is pretty good. And yeah, I think that's everything to talk about with the comp. Let's get into the Ixtal quests. So I got these from one of my TFT coaching members, but basically these are all the quests you can get. The most important thing is that if you take something that the most important thing is you never get stuck on a quest. Never take something where you're unsure that you might get stuck on it, because if you get stuck and you're never able to cash out or you're never able to complete it, That is the absolute worst thing that can ever happen to you while playing the comp. So some things that can make you get stuck are if you choose something like lose player combats but you don't have enough health. That's something that could happen. Some of them where you have to win player combats can be risky, especially because if you haven't cashed out yet, you might not have the what's the word? You might not have the board strength to do it because keep in mind when you're playing this board, so again, on level 6 your board is going to look like this. When you're playing this board, before you have your 3 stars, your major trait is Ixtal, and if you haven't gotten any cash outs, you have no combat power at all from this trait. So if you're playing against someone else who has something like 3 Noxus, you're unlikely to win. So be careful with stuff like that. I've gotten stuck even with something like Kiana scores X takedowns and 1 player combat. I think this is 3 takedowns at least when I took it. Just make sure make sure you basically don't get stuck on a quest. If you do take something that you can always do like sooner or later, always do it sooner, even at the cost of econ. For example, if you choose one of these reroll the shop a certain amount of times, and you have to sacrifice all your econ in order to get it done as soon as possible, it's absolutely worth it. Because although you will get less econ, then you will get another Ixtal quest to replace that. And as we already saw, the quest rewards scale up greatly. So for example, let's say I lose 20 gold worth of econ to take this, but because of it, I go from 550 cash out to 625 cash out. I get 40 more gold, and then the other rewards 2 radiance versus 1 radiant plus Tactician's Crown is pretty comparable either way. But yeah, I would get like a 40 gold difference here. So for stuff like reroll shop X times or whatever, you want to absolutely make sure you do it as soon as possible. Same thing with like have a full bench and then comment for X rounds. Just be very locked in. It's very, very, very important. You do not miss a single round of this. If you do, it's pretty critical. Some of them will work on neutrals and some of them don't. It's not super clear from the wording. I hope that Riot improves the wording on it, but right now it's not super clear. I would just try to play it safe and have a full bench at the end of neutrals. I think there's one where you like can't have any items on your bench. I'm not sure if I see it here, but I would just not pick up your orbs, even if it costs you to lose 1 gold of interest. I don't want to risk it. Yeah, just assume everything works on neutrals. It might not, but you really don't want to miss out on a round because you didn't play it safe, basically. Another quest that I want to talk about is the ones where it requires to lose player combats. Losing player combats generally you don't want to do after 3-2. They will give you more rewards faster compared to something like have a full bench. Like this is very easy to do. Extremely, extremely easy to do, but losing obviously has a cost associated to it. So you'll get sunshards faster with this. But after 3-2, you're gonna do your roll down on 3-2. You really do not want to be losing. You can get more total sunshards just by winning and using those extra rounds to survive and do more quests, even if they're worth less. If you get something like this in stage 2, before you get strong by 2-starring your board, rolling on level 6 on 3-2, then you can take it into the early game, but I absolutely would want to avoid losing player combats after you do your 3-2 roll down. Yeah, a lot of these are pretty straightforward. This one I find is pretty easy to do if you have an itemized Neeko. Assault Champion reaches like X magic resist. You can just look and see, if you have a Dragon's Claw on your unit, if you have a Stone Plate. What else is there? In rounds with 0 gold, yeah, pretty easy. Make sure you do it as soon as possible. Have no items on your bench. Let's talk about this one earlier. Buy XP. So generally, you'll want to be avoiding this if you're staying level 6. But when you are trying to level up, then this is a great one to have because oftentimes you can complete it immediately. Once again, if you have to go down to 0 gold, it's usually worth it just because you can get another quest immediately instead of taking this quest and then waiting a couple rounds to buy XP and keep econ remaining. Yeah, so there's talked about a lot of things. Ixtal, pretty complicated trait. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Item priority, Bard is the strongest even over Milio, despite being a 2-cost. Milio's the next strongest, and Orion's the third strongest. Talked about Nilly positioning. Augments. One type of augment to look out for is augments that give you extra HP. These augments are kind of balanced around not having Ixtal, but when you actually have Ixtal, those augments will allow you to survive extra rounds and convert those extra rounds into more sunshards. So you can think of an HP augment as helping you to get further down this table. So HP augments are super, super, super valuable in this comp. Other than that, it is a 2-cost reroll comp, so reroll augments are good. Something like Pandora's Bench, Prismatic Ticket. Something like Hefty Rolls synergizes really well with Bard. Too much value is good. You're playing 4 2-cost naturally, which is pretty crazy. That's going to give you 4 gold per round as a gold augment. Very insane value. Yeah. I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's everything I want to cover for this comp. Pretty long video, pretty complicated and unique comp. It's really fun, honestly, so would recommend trying it out. If you have any comments or questions, let me know in the Discord, and thanks for watching.